I'd like to call the instruction committee to order. First item on the agenda is approval of the March 16th minutes.
Second.
Any discussion? Alterations? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving, the next item up is going to be the math curriculum with Ms. Zolman. You're up.
I have a few cards that can come in.
More the merrier. Pull up a seat.
Come on.
Surprise,
Appreciate you guys waiting for so long. Everything you want to know about policy and more.
I've always said policy should be the back when I do not the first.
Yeah, that's true. All right, are we all set? Okay, well, nice to see everyone. We're glad to be here. I have some amazing teachers, Dan Saucier from East Rochester, Allison Dolan from McClellan, Meredith Tansey from McClellan. So 5th grade, 3rd grade, and 4th grade. And so they were pilot teachers this year. We've had a busy year with piloting 2 math programs. So it's just, April came really quickly, but we are ready to present to you our decision. As you know, we've had everyday math for about 20 years, and it was time to pilot a new math program. So we had trainings, and we piloted iReady, and then we had more trainings in December and piloted Reveal. And we made our decision to move forward with the iReady program. So I am going to talk a little bit about that. So, teacher reflections. This is very small up here, but hopefully you've had a chance to kind of look through it. So I'm going to ask my teachers to just talk about a few points that they liked about iReady. And some of your comments might be on here, I'm not sure. But we gave all the pilot teachers a survey, and they filled out all different things about both programs. And the last question was, which program would you choose? And iReady was the winner. There were some teachers who enjoyed Reveal more, and we all met together and talked about both programs, and then made that decision. And then I brought it to the elementary administrators, and they unanimously voted for iReady as well. So, what are some things that you guys found with iReady? Anyone can start.
I know for me, iReady was a nice transition. One of the concerns a lot of teachers have had is with our old math program, you spend a day on a concept and then you move along. iReady, the design of the lessons, you spend 2, 3, or even 5 days on certain skills and concepts. So it really gives the kids and the teachers time to, do any pre-learning, work on that skill, and then kind of, if kids are doing well, they have a chance to move forward, and if they're struggling, you have those extra days to kind of really help them with that. There's a benchmark component that goes with it that we take 3 times a year, similar to what we do with other assessments. When one of my kids took it in the fall, they were like, wow, this is like the funnest test I've ever taken. Because in it, they have like built-in breaks, so the kids get to play like a little maze game and stuff. So, I was like, well, that's good.
And what did your kids say the day after we voted in?
Well, so I told my kids that it wasn't my decision which program we got picked. And they were like, well, you better pick iReady, and we're going to be mad if we go to 5th grade and it's not iReady. So I told them yesterday we picked iReady, and they were all super excited. So
Yeah.
Similar to what Dan said, the diagnostic was a huge piece, and the teaching to mastery over the 3 to 5 days for a skill. Having some, in 3rd grade, they're transitioning from 2nd grade where it's a huge jump for expectations of math skills, and so my kiddos really benefited from that this year, and they enjoyed iReady a lot more than Reveal, so I took their say as part of how I made my decision. And with the diagnostic that Dan was talking about, they get to do this personalized pathway, which my view on it was kind of similar to how Amplify is with CKLA. They take a diagnostic, they get their pathway of where they're at as a learner right now, they do it again, it'll adjust and keep going. So that was nice because it did allow for some more independent practice during our day.
I mirror all of the comments so far. In addition, I think going back to the diagnostic, what I like from the teacher standpoint is it's very easy to read and understand exactly what skills the kids need to do. We have MIWA as well, but sometimes that can be a little more cumbersome to dig into. And so I like the simplicity of the data that the diagnostic gives us. In addition to the mastery, I was in kindergarten and then second grade, and now I'm fifth. So like, I have really seen that vertical transition and how important the build on foundations is. And what I like is that each day that the concept is rolled out, there's just a little bit more added onto it. And so I can really see that they've taken a lot of time to consider that. And I think it's giving some of our kids at that lower end a fighting chance to master some of these skills and really build a good foundation. So I appreciate it for that.
All right, I'll go quickly through these slides. You have them as backup materials. There's a little video in there that you could click on in your backup and just kind of see the site and what it looks like. And we really liked some of the big ideas from iReady, like students take ownership of their learning, practice matches the rigor of the standards, so we know that we need to teach the standards, and they have lots of practice. And I know, Sarah, you know all about iReady as well. The teachers use data to differentiate instruction, so that was one of the big key things, was iReady is really built for differentiation. So we're really excited to like pinpoint exactly what kids need and be very precise, and then give them what they need instead of a bunch of stuff that they don't need. So we're very excited about that. Before I brought this program to you, we know that it was all green on EdReport, so that means that there was a rigorous process that went through both programs that we chose. iReady Classroom Mathematics is our core. Then we have iReady Assessment, which the teachers talked a little bit about. And then we have that personalized instruction. So I think those were some huge components. I have a little sheet here that kind of digs into, I only have 5, so Sarah, you probably know, Christine, but if a few people want to take those, it kind of talks about all the stuff that we're going to get when we get this program. We want teachers to be able to gather data and then directly get right into instruction. So that's what iReady does for us. The teachers can go through some of these processes, but we want them to be teaching and know exactly how to pinpoint instruction. So that's another thing that we're pretty excited about. And then I think, Meredith, you're going to talk a little bit about the differences in kids that you see coming up from kindergarten to 2nd to 5th grade.
Yeah, well, it's kind of, it's interesting how I have opportunities to use some of my kindergarten and 2nd grade skills with my 5th graders, which yes, is partly impacted by COVID, but partly impacted because like that spiraling and not enough time to kind of master skills was really tricky for a lot of our students. One of the things that has been really helpful with iReady is with everyday math, we were set to 75-minute math blocks at the from grade 1 to 5, and there wasn't room within that a lot of the time for intervention because it was so cumbersome to just teach the skill, right? So the kids that are in that kind of green zone are like getting it and moving right along, but then the time that we really need to address those other needs was really hard to get. And now that we don't all have the interventionists we need, it's not even as easy just to say, oh, they'll get it in group later. So what I really loved about iReady is that it let me, it gave me some flexibility within the program to let some of my okay students kind of run with it. And then they had a path to go to when they were finished to really get what they need. And it gave me the time to work with those other kids to try and feed their needs as well. So I really appreciated that it wasn't, we're at 75 minutes and we're go, 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 go. There's time to stop, there's time to organize, there's time to like make really quick flexible changes in groups, like, oh, I see you're not getting this, like let's pull you in over here. So I really like that about this program, and just having the time to weave in intervention within that block rather than hope that there's a person to do it later on. So that was nice.
And then, so this kind of just shows the same thing. We see kids that come to us 1 year behind, 3 years behind in grade level. So we have to, and I think, Dan, you're going to talk a little bit about this, but we do the same thing with ELA. Like, we need to give them grade level instruction and differentiation. So the teachers are very busy with assessment and reporting, and then they're balancing these things.
And I mean, they kind of alluded to it, but with the diagnostic that you give the kids, if I'm getting ready to teach chapter 2 of this program, I can go back to my diagnostic and there's a prerequisite report that I can pull, and it tells me that these 5 kids are lacking these skills that I'm about to teach tomorrow. So when we're doing that smaller group, or when I've, if I've done my core lesson for the day and I've got my last 20 minutes where these kids are on their pathway, I'm pulling these kids to pre-teach what's gonna be in tomorrow's lesson. So it's really nice that, that report is there at my fingertips, to be able to just pull and get ready for, what's coming down the pike.
Yeah. So I'm going to skip through some of these. This is what a classroom might look like. Like you have whole class, rotations, and then additional support. So the kids are up and moving and they're doing lots of different things. We integrate all of the math practices into this program daily. So, and one of the things that really, I could tell right away was the support that we get from this company, and that's really important in my role, but the teachers as well. So it's not really the program that teaches kids, it's the teacher. But when it's coupled with a high-quality core, that's kind of the secret sauce of what we want, right? So they have great tools and they know what to do. So I'm very excited. The company is giving us, I think, 24 professional development days for the year, and then, we'll continue that year to year, but they have just been so responsive. I think we can all say that any questions we have, and that 24, we're not pulling the teachers out because we know that with subs, but that means like some summer work and things like that, so don't worry about those days. But we have a whole team that's backing us up, and that's another thing that I'm really excited about, so. And that's it for us. If anyone has questions, please.
How many classrooms throughout the district have gotten a chance to look at this program?
So every school had a couple of teachers, at least a couple of teachers. We had 3 teachers per grade level, and so all of the teachers have had a chance to, I know you all would say that teachers would come in and you'd observe different grade levels, so they've all seen it and experienced it, but.
And like in my school, I've talked at staff meetings and stuff and kind of just told people what the different things are like. And we had a K first and 4th grade and a 5th grade at my school, so we've tried to really share the wealth. And I'm the math leader for 4th grade, so I've been kind of talking to other schools and
So this is
those
like
teachers.
a street first grade would have had this?
So 1st grade, yes, she did, Deb Lugo had it.
I had a chance to do a remote learning day with my first grade
Oh.
granddaughter, and she was very successful with her.
Good.
The name
The
stuck out
iReady.
at me, I think that's what she called it. She had
Yeah.
to go on her by herself and get into a,
Yes,
module
and they
and-
have some great parent supports too, so,
Yeah.
there are parent letters and just parent support, so if they get something sent home, then the kids kind of know what they're doing, instead of like, this is so new to me, I don't know what to do,
so
so.
I was just impressed that my first grade granddaughter could go off and do this module by herself. And get back to the teacher.
Go ahead, Karen.
I'm not a math teacher, so, I know we have one. But I just want to thank you, because on top of teaching your class and doing all your normal stuff, you took this upon yourself. So I just think that you should be commended, because it's hard enough teaching a class full of students, but to get 2 new curriculums, or, you know what I mean, or 2 new programs, and I'm assuming you've been meeting and having those discussions. So again, I will support what you guys want, because truly you're the teachers and I'm not. So I just want to say thank you for taking the time to do all of this, because,
Yeah, they have
it's
been
appreciated.
amazing. We didn't know, it was kind of recommended to do this, and actually the company said this was the best pilot they've ever seen, so they're going to recommend it in other states.
Yeah,
So I thought that was pretty cool.
so thank you.
Go ahead.
One question I had, you started the year with iReady and now you're in Reveal. Have you had a chance to have kids try out the iReady geometry standards? Because I assume now you're pretty much in geometry, but when you did iReady, it was more number systems. Have the kids been able to play around with it for geometry at all?
So actually, my kids were not successful with Reveal's geometry because it did not give them enough So I went back and did the iReady geometry lessons.
Good.
And they really were able to solidify some skills that Reveal did not give. I did it twice. I did it with geometry
I would have them call me and say,
and
can I
conversion.
teach this from iReady? I was like, yes.
I'm like, so 2 days on shapes is not gonna cut it for 5th grade.
Okay.
So I ended up going back to iReady and started from session 1, and it was a really nice build, and they just did it in a really nice way for the kids. And so I think some of those question marks were taken care of by doing that, so
Thank you, good.
it was great.
And
Bless
then,
you.
Bless you.
if I may, Mr. Travis, my only other question was the professional development, if there was plans for this summer, all teachers.
Yeah, so Christine and I have been meeting and talking about possible summer dates. It's hard to do that though, because we can't expect all teachers to come in the summer, and then we have to pay them to come in the summer. So it's best to do it in the fall. If we ever had an extra day or something, it would be, so I'm working with the company, I'm working with our calendar to see, but I've like penciled in math throughout the year to give this professional development.
And each school will have experts, so to speak,
Yeah.
right, that your colleagues.
Every school has, they've done it, they've talked at staff meetings, and
And iReady rolls the program out for the student and the teacher. Like, they go through a whole session at the beginning of the school year, like the first however many lessons are just like learning the math procedures. So it is a gentle rolling start that I think even if, staff don't choose to come to summer training, they, like, between the people in the building who've had experience with it and kind of that slow rollout for the teachers and students, it'll give them time to kind of be able to look into things.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ma'am. Have we been in touch with any other school district around New England that have had the program and used it? And what are they, you found out the pitfalls and
yeah, so I've probably
successes?
done most of that work, but absolutely, I've talked to we have like regional curriculum meetings with the region, Southeastern it's called, and we talk about math and different programs, so I've definitely, before we even piloted this program, I have talked with curriculum coordinators within the state. Outside of the state, we work with a company called Ed Elements. They help us with personalized learning, and Ronnie is one of our people that we work with, and he said, going around the nation, he has seen data just jump with this program. And that's not the only thing, but it's a nice byproduct of student learning, right? So I just recently spoke with another curriculum director in the state and talked about iReady and how their scores just jumped. And again, that's not the only thing, but it's one of them. So I have definitely done my homework on this, and I'm very confident moving forward with this.
You all realize that Sarah's a math teacher.
I know. Yes, she used to work in our district. We worked together on competencies, so.
And did everyday math.
Yes, she did.
You mentioned that it's more parent-friendly. Do we expect to have parents complaining like, I can't do this,
Yeah, oh
like
God,
we
that-
did with everyday math?
I'll let the teachers
I was gonna say, so.
talk a little bit about that.
One of my favorite things was that the beginning of each unit, because the lessons are broken down into 3 to 5 days for sessions. So the beginning of each unit, there is a letter that you sent home that said, this is what we're working on for this unit. And then with a lot of the lessons, there was also a letter you would send home. And one of my favorite parts, I have ESL learners in my class, I have 2, and they're Spanish only at home. And so they have the same letters that you can print out in dozens of languages, which was really nice. So I sent it home in both for those families. And I never had parents complain. I had lots of thank yous because it was a different way that the kids were having to learn and demonstrate their learning. So I didn't have any issues with that.
That's refreshing.
Yeah, I didn't hear any of that, what is this new math? You know, it's just kind of, they were rolling with it. So I think it breaks it down really nicely. You know, being new in 5th grade, I struggled with Reveal because it didn't break it down for me. And I was like, I don't remember how to do all the 5th grade math. But Reveal, iReady did a really nice job of breaking down steps. And I think that's nice for parents to have as well. So.
They piloted the 2022 program, and 2024 is what we'll get in the fall. So everything is brand new, they've done enhancements, they've added STEM, they've woven STEM into this, so I think that was something else that was pretty cool, so we're excited.
Let's not call it new.
Yeah, but you know, like they perfected it, they've been around for a long time, but it's just, you know, they take edits and perfect it, so.
Go ahead, Mark.
So, is there any motion we need to do, or we just,
We have to motion to recommend.
the eliminate,
Right, don't we?
anything that says get rid of everyday math, I think is easy. Is there a large component of estimation in with their programs? I remember with everyday math, it was always talked about, and it's the hardest concept that I'd never agree with, because your interest rate may be around 25%.
I don't think it's as heavy as it was in
Okay.
everything.
It's not, I mean, I taught it in the 3rd grade part, and it's not as heavy. I mean, they have to know how to round, and that's where it comes in.
Perfect,
And
so
that's
in the
about
rounding function.
round nearest 10 and 100, and, you know,
Thank you.
yeah.
That's my own personal issue with that.
Christine,
Yep, we need to make a
correct, right?
motion.
We
Yep.
do need to make a motion to approve this as Sarah, you want the honor?
Sure. I'd like to make the motion to full board that we adopt iReady Math beginning in the 2023-2024 school year.
Second.
No homework, right?
That's, it's not, it's.
I think that's a different conversation.
Yeah.
Let's keep it all
That doesn't
school.
come from the district.
In other words, Shane's not helping with that.
No.
I have another quick question. I noticed in the handout you gave us, there are supplemental curriculum stuff that go up to grade 9,
Yes.
but this is for K to 5.
Right.
Does it continue
It does
on?
continue, yes. So I know the middle school will be looking at some point within the next couple of years, and I don't know if this will be on their agenda, but I'm hoping it will, so.
Okay.
I know they've been curious about it, and we have our 5th grade, we have 6th grade is going to come watch 5th grade, and then 5th grade is going to go watch like Sarah Keller and others at the middle school and have math conversations and like, how did your kids do, and what are you seeing when they come up to 6, so we have that already set for this year.
Will iReady, when they finish on 5th grade and then they go to the middle school, does it blend well at this point?
Yeah, right now they have Glencoe, so it's really teaching the math standards and our competencies, so, you know, they do adapt to another program if they have
Okay.
to.
Great.
It's just the tool that they use.
Any other questions, folks?
Nope.
Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes.
Thank
Congratulations.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for sitting with us.
Sorry.
It's interesting.
It's very interesting.
You're welcome.
Mr. Pusey, do you want to do the internet thing now too? See Mr. DeRosa?
Yes, that'd be great, thank you.
Yeah.
So we have 9 slides to share tonight, and I haven't told Don this, but we're gonna riff off one another. Don's gonna be the technical guy. I'm gonna summarize the slide, and we're gonna do this presentation from our end in less than 9 minutes. All right? And then we'll open it up to questions after. As you all know, we had a lot of Wi-Fi connectivity issues, which required us to restrict network connectivity to BYOD devices. It's important to note that the firewall that we had was something that was installed in 2016. Obviously, since that time, personal devices and the price for personal devices obviously has come down enough that it's a very accessible tool for most. So we've had to restrict and segregate certain things. As you can recall, and this is where I'll pass it up to Don in a second, we just had authorization from the board in March to buy a brand new, very, very slick firewall device that is state-of-the-art and will be installed in July. Don, anything you want to add to that one?
Well, that comes up in a later slide, so we can hit that.
All right, you got it. Again, just a quick snapshot of some of the history here. Obviously, Wi-Fi, the initial program that we had was installed in 2011 through 2016. You'll see that obviously a lot of our stuff is aging out. The nice thing is Don and his staff have already identified a plan to move forward with individual access points. And Don, maybe if you could just share how Wi-Fi was initially installed, how it transitioned, and now what it looks like in each building.
Well, the wireless started out back in 2010. We really had almost no wireless in the schools at all. We would have like a small wireless router in a location to give a little bit of access for a couple of devices. In 2011, Chris Foley, William Allen, they had some money or a grant, I believe, and they brought a company in to look over their school and see what it would take to put wireless throughout the whole school. Their plan was to put access points in the wireless access points in the hallways to cover multiple classrooms per access point. There weren't that many devices, so that was good coverage. That was good for the future. So 2011, William Allen got their wireless. That worked out well. In 2012, we had 4 companies talk to us about putting wireless in the rest of the schools, and they came up with the same plan: put access points in the hallways, and that will be good coverage for all of our needs. Then a little later on in 2013 and 2015, we started adding managed Chromebooks and managed iPads to the network, which started bringing up the number of devices. So then in 2015, East Rochester School went in. They put access points in every classroom to give much better Wi-Fi in there. And keying off of that, we started, and then in 2016, we replaced the old firewall with the current one that we have now. And that was our old model. It was access points in the hallways, and we only had 2 wireless networks, one for trusted devices and one for all the untrusted devices, personal devices and such.
Since that time, obviously, we've gone one-to-one, right? So you can see, just again, in these years, obviously, we moved things around, so now we have access points in all classrooms, okay? I believe, again, looking at this, McClellan and RMS were the last 2 to have the hallway model Don was just referencing, move to every classroom have access points. And so we're in the process right now of looking at access points. If you go back just quickly to look, ERS, right, was the first school, essentially, that had that happen. So it's our newest elementary school, but believe it or not, it's already time to replace those classroom access points. And Don has a great inventory of what's next, and he'll share more about that in a moment. So just quickly, a good timeline for you to look at. We obviously had a lot of connectivity issues. The green, you can see normal speeds, which would allow people to access the things they need to access. We greatly had issues across the district from anyone trying to access our online programs, so speed just plummeted. And it actually really was first identified in the high school, believe it or not, because the high school was using an online program to start the career pathway programs that we've been talking about. So in their advisory program, they were all logging into a web-based client to access a survey. So students could do pathway work, and staff would then get that information and start to help students. And no one could access it. And again, similarly, no one across our district could access the things that they wanted. So basically, teaching and learning was greatly diminished. So again, the number of devices is now too high for our current firewall. And again, when we talk a little more about the new slick one, Don can get into the particulars on that. Just a quick thing to look at is that, again, we knew we had to replace the firewall, so we were talking about that before this really became an issue, because Don has a great depth chart of where we need to go, it's important to note that just at the high school, there was over 2,000 personal devices connected at the high school alone, accessing non-academic information, which then hampered the whole district. So it was very, very important that we had to reduce access so that we could allow teaching and learning to continue. In January, the CIC did a wonderful job creating a new Wi-Fi system, right? It's a network, excuse me, for the wrong word here. And it was restricted to school-issued devices, because now we're one-to-one, right? So every teacher, every student has their own device. So things worked well, and after 8 to 3, right, BYOD was working. And this returned the curriculum application back to normal. So we were all set. Unfortunately, what we had is, once our our traffic went back up to the standard that we wanted it to be, unfortunately, students are smart. They actually hacked the system Don and his staff created. Again, we saw our Wi-Fi diminish greatly. Unfortunately, this corrupted network was actually being sold access in the high school. Teachers and staff actually, students both were involved in kind of accessing it. Don then had to create a deny list to, again, blacklist or deny list all of these devices that were, again, hampering our flow of teaching and learning to occur. And that was a real safety issue, really. I mean, that's the issue a lot of people talk about, but that was the issue there. So I want to thank Don and his staff, because within 4 days, they rectified the issue. So it was a lot more work than we initially anticipated we'd need to do. So this is where I think Don can really talk about how we're going to add to our network. So as you know, we spent a lot of money recently, which was great because it was grant dollars, on accessing what we've called basically a Rolls Royce of firewalls that will be installed in early July. The BYOD restrictions will still stay in place right now, and actually, because of increased numbers, we need to make sure that we're doing it at the middle school as well, because their BYOD now is gaining speed. So again, you see that we're still in that 1 to 300, but we want to make sure we're really, really strong at all schools. One other thing that's really important, and I think CIC did a great job doing this, is that our policy that governs our technology is in compliance with federal government regulations. So SIPA and FERPA are two very, very important things that we're responsible to make sure, if we were audited, that we're following. And Don can speak a little more about this, I'll hand it off to him in a second, about when people were using personal devices to access curriculums, we had no way to ensure what they were accessing was following SIPA and FERPA. If we were to have been audited and we couldn't definitely say that we were following these things, we're at risk of losing all our federal grant dollars. So it's really important that, again, the robust network that Don's going to design and talk about will do that, but also allow some BYOD access as well, all right? So maybe, Don, this is where the tech side of things. Please talk about the Cadillac.
Well, so going forward, the Cadillac, and as a comparison, the existing firewall that we have now allows for 60,000 connections per second. Now, every device makes multiple connections, so it's not like we had 60,000 devices, but each one does multiple connections. The new firewall will be able to handle 800,000 connections per second. So it should be a lot of years before we have to start worrying about overwhelming this one in the same manner as the other one got overwhelmed. We do plan on continuing to segregate out the network, and this new firewall is going to allow us to do a much better job at that. It will allow us to look into the traffic going back and forth through the internet better than before, so that we can make sure that any malicious traffic is not able to get in. Again, just to protect our students and staff and data. and also to comply with these regulations that kind of hold the purse strings on some of these federal dollars. We are going to, yes, and so the BYOD, which now only contains personal devices, we moved all of our managed trusted devices off of that, so that now these untrusted devices are on their own network, currently restricted to just 4 mission-critical websites, so that some stuff can still be done, but they're not going to be allowed to overwhelm the network. But going forward, we will open it up for personal devices again, but we're going to restrict the amount of bandwidth that they get, so that they'll be able to do things like Wi-Fi calling, texting, email, things that have been pointed out as very important to staff and students during this whole incident we've been having. But if they want to do things like YouTube or TikTok, streaming data and things, that's going to be very painful for them to do. It's just not going to work very well.
So in closing, and I'm going to open it up to questions, I want to thank some of the student leaders that I recognized the other day, also some staff members that came forward, and Ms. Katsanas, the administrator, to help troubleshoot and problem solve. Some of the things that Don and his staff have been able to do as they joined the table with me and these students and staff is point people to information that they didn't know. Like there was a student that was talking about how they used Google Chrome on their Chromebook, and there are some enhancements and ways to make sure the speed is where they want it to be. So they actually created some questions, and CIC provided information that was then shared through all advisories. So students created signs, and they're being broadcast and shared. CIC is also creating office hours in the library for students that have needs or concerns about some of the technologies they have access to. So we're back to optimal performance based on some of the things we've done, and hopefully once July comes, we'll be able to establish a very strong, robust network across the district that ensures teaching and learning takes priority, but also allows for some of the things that people need to do from time to time.
Ready for questions?
Yes?
Go ahead, Sandy.
Thank you. I am the least knowledgeable person in the world about anything that's electronic. That includes microwaves or anything else like that, so bear with me. I can't walk my neighborhood because I have parents that are complaining that their kids can't take the courses. There's some courses that are online at the high school apparently that they're having very difficult.
That was one of the things, VLAX are the online courses, and some of the students, some of the videos that were there, they weren't telling their teacher or their study hall teacher that was an issue. Once it was brought to Don's attention, Don's able to look at those courses and make sure that they get whitelisted through our firewall. So again, these are all things that students didn't really understand. Like one of the things we talked about was there's a work ticket system. You hear Mr. Toddy talk about it at his building meeting. Don and his staff have a work ticket system as well. So when there's an issue and I bring that to my teacher, the teacher creates a ticket and a response is given, and it's within a 2 or 3 day turnaround for most times, and then things happen. So students didn't really understand some of the processes, and that's what we tried to do to heighten their awareness.
Okay. The other parent that's on my case was that there was a problem during the SATs a month ago when the SATs were being administered. And
I didn't hear of any issues during SAT.
Okay. All right.
Mr. Roy and
Can
Ms.
I assure all my neighbors that September 1st, everything will be all taken care of?
Should be.
They'll be happy?
As long as the vendor hits deadlines, right? That's what you hope happens.
Okay, thank you.
In the fall with the BYOD network, will they be able to access Google Classroom and Google Drive from their personal device, like their phone?
I don't know if they'll be able to do that comfortably. No, but again, every student has a school-issued device to be able to use, so there should not be a need for that.
Thank you.
I'm gonna touch upon that very issue. And in various schools, like my school, every kid has a laptop, an actual laptop, not a Chromebook. And so they could easily open it up and log into PowerSchool, which is the equivalent of IC here. But yet, every single kid in the building has a phone, uses the app, because it's faster, it's quicker, it's more reliable than sitting there, opening up, logging in, sitting there waiting for it to log in, and whatnot. So if we're looking to update our network to 21st, 22nd century, whatever we want to call it, something more reliable and futuristic that will meet our needs for years, it just seems like if we're restricting personal devices that they can't even access Google Classroom or Google Drive or what have you, or their mail, Google Mail for their school email, we're only catching up to where we are and not looking forward. That just seems to be my worry. And I have a bunch of other questions,
No, go ahead, finish.
but I'm wondering, you know, it is a Cadillac. If it's a Cadillac, is that going to meet the needs where kids will be able to use their phones to access Google? Because let's face it, we're in the 21st century, well into the 21st century. Everybody uses their phones. We all use our phones.
Not a BMW, just a Cadillac.
If people have phones, right? So that's one of the things we need to make sure this is an equity question, and we need to make sure that, again, I think our district's done a wonderful thing in making sure that everyone has access to a device to access equitably their needs, right? I have preferences, and I know when I go to certain places, my preferences aren't necessarily what happens because I'm not in control of that locus. So like I go to certain friends' houses and their Wi-Fi is open for me. I go to certain others that I have to ask to join, and some let me. Some that have it closed down altogether. There's sometimes my cell phone works, like in this room it works sometimes, and sometimes it doesn't. It's probably an unreasonable standard to say that my preference will always be taken into consideration. I think the most important thing is through the lens of equity, this board and this district has done an amazing job making sure that students have access and teachers have access to great technology. Again, another Chromebook purchase is being done, inventory is happening, making sure that this summer everything's going to be updated and pushed out. So again, as we work on updating with this new server, this new firewall, we can look at expanding things, but we need to make sure that teaching and learning stays equitable across the district.
I don't blame you. I think it's great. We'll install it, see where it is, see what needs to be adjusted in the future and whatnot, but I think we need to recognize, one, almost every high school kid has a phone. There are some that don't, and for those who don't, we have provided an opportunity for access. Even the kids that do have a phone have this, which they use in the classroom. I have my kids use their laptops in my classroom, even though I know they have a phone and they can access the web using their phone in my classroom. But when I'm using it in my class, they use their laptops and whatnot. But between classes or at lunch, and they're trying to communicate with the guidance office and trying to schedule an appointment, and when we have our programs at the high school using Google and they can't access it on their phone, it just seems like it's backwards. If they can't use their phone to get an appointment in guidance, they have to stop, open up, log into their Chromebook at lunch and figure that out. It just seems backwards to me. Go ahead, Jim.
So I understand where you're coming from, but I think people's personal devices should be used for personal stuff. We're giving them a device, and this network should be for learning, not for people to be able to use it for other stuff. Whether, they're saying they're gonna use it for school resources, but they're also gonna use it for non-school resources if we're gonna have to open it up. So I'd rather just leave it closed, use your device. If it takes you an extra 5 minutes, it takes you an extra 5 minutes to keep the network running smoothly. So I would not be for opening up so they can use their cell phones for school stuff.
You mentioned just looking for some clarification. You mentioned VLAX, and there's some things that they couldn't get on the VLAX, and then they could put in a ticket. What happens if it does take the maximum 4 days? Do they get to, are they just stuck not being able to do VLAX for those 4 days?
No, that's just one component. VLAX is an online curriculum, so
Right.
there's other things than just the videos or those things. So it's a self-paced module, and there's lots of things that they can access in their curriculum.
And then once it's approved for one, is it approved for like the next person so like, let's say us three are taking the VLAX course and I'm ahead, because I'm with them. And so I'm ahead and I can't get access to the video. Sorry, just had to be said. So once I get approved for access, do they have access to the same video?
It's not person by person. If they're going to the same location to get the video, then it would be then approved. We're not just approving this video for this person.
So you're approving it for like?
Right, typically,
Okay.
right, typically these companies, they farm out their data, the videos and such. And so the VLAX site might be already just fine, but the videos go to a different site.
Yeah.
And sometimes we would have to whitelist that site to allow that video in.
Can I ask one more question? And so like with the Chromebooks, I know you had mentioned like YouTube or that. Let's say a student is looking up like a YouTube something, you know, they have those ed talks or whatever and they're looking that up. Is that accessible because they're using their Chromebook, their school-wide Chromebook?
Are you talking about the allowing personal devices back in the fall and the restrictions, or?
She's saying a school-issued Chromebook accessing YouTube or TeacherTube
Yeah.
on the school network.
Right, so then all the devices on our network go through our main firewall. So anything that's allowed on the firewall is allowed for those devices.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? I have a few more. This is all about wireless, but does each classroom still have the hardwired opportunity? And pardon me because I don't know all the terminology, but do they have the ability to connect a desktop, for example, hardwire it in, or is that all?
Yes,
wireless
all
as well?
classrooms still have wires in them, and most classrooms will have a wired desktop in them, or a laptop, wired or wireless, whatever the teacher prefers.
Does your department have sort of like a wish list, like where do you want to be in 5 years, like a 5-year planning, like we have a 5-year plan, like where does CIC want to be in 5 years and whatnot? And I have sort of a follow-up question after that. And is that, I assume?
Nothing official or kind of set in stone. It's really hard to know where we're going to be in 5 years, what the needs are going to be. I mean, this network has grown up from, again, in 2010 with really nothing. Then we put in wireless that looked like it was going to be adequate for quite some time, and the number of devices grew so much that it wound up outstripping it. And then we had to put access points in all the locations, so it's a little difficult there. We are looking towards putting new model access points in all the classrooms. We started purchasing them already to start doing the high school and get them taken care of.
Good. I guess my follow-up question is, you know, one of the things that was installed in my school was a phone in every classroom that's connected to the internet, hardwired into the system. And it's phenomenal for communication between office guidance, you know, every office in the building and a classroom and so on and so forth. Is there a goal to move to that direction? I know it's a hefty investment, but communications is a time saver. It's
Well, I can answer this for you. I think that would be the purview of the board. If you desired that, that's something that we would look at.
okay. Well, fine. Also, let's see. You have a new staff. According to our budget, if it passes city council, we have a new CIC person, right? And that would certainly help installation of a lot of this stuff, correct?
It may, yes.
Yes, a new person would help immensely, yes. Yeah, yeah.
Okay, just wanted to make sure that would
That might be the
also.
wrong person, if not helping.
And I'm sure I'll have more questions. That's what I just came up with and last.
Right, and I'm sorry, speaking to your comment about the phones in the rooms, there are phones in a lot of the classrooms or in other locations, but certainly not one in every classroom at this time.
Okay. That's it. Any other questions?
Nope.
You asked them all.
I know Paul's the IT guy. I'm surprised
He's
here.
not ready.
There's no action item on this, right? Okay. Okay, just informational.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don, appreciate you
Thank you.
staying here for so late.
Yes,
Oh, that's
thank
fine.
you.
Bill him. All right, there's a list of field trips in the backup. Any questions on the field trips?
Nope.
We have some information on the calendar at end of the year,
Yep, we definitely need to look at that.
and that came through on email. I had it.
Keep back up too.
Yep.
Back up.
Was it in
Of
there?
your agenda.
Yeah, it's right here.
Is it about the end of last year's
After
school?
the field trips. right after field trips.
Okay.
So you can see that there were,
I just had a quote, what's the Springfield map, what is the Big E?
Oh, it's
Are they
a
really going to
huge-
Big E
It's like the county fair.
Yeah, the
in
expo.
Springfield, Mass?
That is the most dangerous city in the country.
Oh my God, no, it's not.
No way.
Oh, it's wonderful. I'm so excited.
It's not
Well, maybe
downtown.
not during the day at the Big E.
Stay away from the downtown, yeah, in the city.
I just have the calendar, is that what it was?
Which one is
yeah,
that?
so the two school calendars that we need to look at. There were three days that were snow days that students had. And there was one day that, it was a teacher workshop for the teachers, that we had weather on that you can see. And so if all of those days are made up, the kids would come to school on Friday the 16th, Monday the 19th, Tuesday the 20th, and then the teachers would come back on Wednesday the 21st.
Teachers would be here the 21st.
Yes.
For one day, like,
The teacher workshop day that they missed on July 23rd, January.
And then, night school goes to.
They would go, they would make up 2 of the days, and they would go till June 30th.
So now we're gonna count.
Do we have an
15 is the last day of school?
do we have an idea what that last day is going to be? Typically, at least in my district, it's time for teachers to close up their classroom, get their grades done, and then check out.
It's a teacher workshop day from January, so it's a 50-50 day per the CBA. So 50% of the time will be their own time where they can pack up the classroom. And then 50% of the time, we're looking into working with Heidi, a celebration.
Okay. So it's contract,
Mhm.
tied into the contract.
That day was, yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
But obviously, it's the board's discretion to decide on the school year calendar.
May I ask a question about, on the chair, so I can? If, just hypothetically, if we decide to kind of change the last day of school to say Friday the 16th,
Mhm.
does that, first of all, what kind of havoc does that create for teachers and planning that you can pick up? And 2, do we have enough hours to enable us to leave on the 16th?
I think if we make those decisions now, it gives them time to plan for that. Let's be honest, if they come back for those 2 days, there's definitely some things that they can do, but it's not going to be high intense, learning when it's 90 degrees out on June 20th.
Yeah, me too.
16?
And what was your second question?
Do we have enough hours?
We do.
So if the 16th was an option, what would be the date for the back in school? Would that be the 29th? Since it's like one snow day we're proposing to, or being discussed.
If I may, I would say if you do one for one, I would do for the other.
Yeah.
So
So-
if the 16th, then
And-
it
and
says the
just-
28th here, the 29th.
Yeah,
right?
and to remind the board is always considered a half day on the last student day. So on the last student day, it was an early release,
Mhm.
and then students leave, and then faculty start their like transition to pack up things and do things, and then because of the PD day, the last day, whatever that day would be the 50-50 PD day, teacher time, and then celebration PD.
So the fact that they would have a early release day on a Friday, the 16th, that gives them time to start to pack up, and then they can continue it on half the day on Monday.
So when it's all said and done, they would have had a full day to prepare.
That makes sense.
I'm good.
Yeah, you wanna make a motion?
So I'll make the motion that the last student day for the district is June 16th with an early release. And that will coincide with the last student day for the magnet school, will be the 29th with the early release.
Second.
All right, any discussion? Lost my calendar here. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. That's a recommendation of the full board.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I said.
You didn't?
That's what I meant.
All right.
Oh,
I heard the thought.
you guys.
All right. 5-year plan. What do we have on our 5-year plan?
5-year, what committee is this?
So
Instruction, it's only our second.
Thank you. So technology assessment, which was just part of being done here, which will continue this summer. The new math program, K-8, that will be, I would say we'll wait till full board adoption. The next month, I think we'll be cleaning this list up.
Okay.
Because what Sarah's writing in there right now is exactly
What's
So-
the full board?
11.
11? Completed as of 5?
Yeah, so when we meet on 5/18, we can clean, I won't be here, but you guys can clean that up.
Okay. Anything else?
Perfect.
Anything else on 5-year plan?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Public comment. I know you've been waiting patiently, so.
Hello, my name is Tiffany Peabody. I'm just going to repeat what I asked last month about kindness and moral assembly for all grades. Really, I really would like to see this done in the middle school because the bullying is rampant in the middle school. I know you don't have any of the numbers yet, but I'd like to tell you that my daughter was stabbed with a pencil last month, and they said that they couldn't do anything about it unless she gave his name, which she will not do because of the ramifications she gets from the other students. That's what you're gonna face with this. You're gonna get the, all your statistics, but they're not gonna be right because a lot of the kids will not say anything about the bullying. Also, she did tell me that in her class, there is a special needs person, and the boys in that class know what her triggers are. And they'll sit there and they'll do the triggers to make that poor girl go into a fit and start screaming. And then they have to pull her out of class, which isn't right because it's not her fault that the boys are doing the whistling and triggering her. My 13-year-old noticed this, all right? Why aren't the teachers, why aren't the adults noticing this stuff? My 13-year-old can notice it. So we need to do something other than tell them the name and do this and do that. They need to have some instruction that this is not okay. We need to instruct them that bullying is not okay. And it hurts more than just the student they're doing it to. It hurts themselves. Thank you.
Thank you. Seeing,
I actually have public comment. Yeah. The Rochester Fair Board of Directors, now that they have a lot of their issues settled with the city, have decided they wanted to become more involved with the community, and one of the things they thought about was showcasing the programs at Spalding in particular, and maybe some of the elementary schools too, because folks at home and out on the street really don't know what goes on in the building. And we have some spectacular students, and you know, the automotive program is one. They ought to talk about the banking. They have kids that have gotten at least regional-wide art program awards, and so there's just they don't know that there's graphic designs in the building and what have you. And so the administration suggested that I should come and share that information with the instruction committee and see if there's any problems with going forward with that. We're working with Heidi and we're working with Michelle and a couple of other people that.
yeah, I was going to suggest that would be the way to go, is reach out to the building
Yep.
principals and administration.
Yep, that was what Kyle suggested, and
Great.
he brought them in and we spoke with them, so.
Any other?
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
We are adjourned.